Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Down the Tee Tennis Podcast. And this week we'll be summing up the French Open, probably starting with the men's final yesterday, which Novak Djokovic won in 5 sets over Stefanos Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas in his first Grand Slam final put up a good fight, beats the world number one, who comes away the winner. And also after that, talking about the women's singles competition, where Barbora Krejčíková prevailed in the end over Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova in the final. Once again, a really surprise tournament. A lot of great stories along the way there, so I can't wait to discuss that. Just a couple of other results to update you on first, though. The Stuttgart Open, ATP 250, the grass court season is underway, running alongside the end of the clay court season, where Marin Cilic took the title over Felix Auger-Aliassime in the final. Another final loss for Felix. That's really upsetting to see. I just want Felix to get that first title as soon as possible now. And then in the women's, also grass court season underway in Nottingham, where Britain's Jo Konta takes a win, and hopefully that's a very good sign going into Wimbledon. She's had strong performances at Wimbledon before. But, you know, we've got the coming weeks to talk about Wimbledon. Today we are summing up the French Open, so starting with that men's final. Djokovic versus Tsitsipas. Djokovic the champion. What did you think, Ewan?
Yeah, I thought it was a great final. It was a really good conclusion to the tournament. I mean, there's so many great matches at the end of the tournament on both sides of the draw, which I'm sure will come on you. But yeah, starting with the final. I mean, it's sort of never. It's just too amazed how Djokovic can dig himself out of a hole and a seemingly unlikely position to win from. I mean, Tsitsipas, I thought, started the match off really well. I thought they both played quite well in the first set, and in the end, it looked like Djokovic was going to take after he saved a set point, and then he went up a break, but couldn't serve the set out. Seemed to be having some kind of problem with the sun. I don't know, and kind of continued into the tiebreak, but then he hit back in the tiebreak. Tsitsipas eventually got over the line there, and then he sort of raced through the second set. He was playing extremely well at that point. Tsitsipas, Djokovic continued to struggle. And even at that point, I mean, you wouldn't rule Djokovic out, but it did look like it was going to be difficult for him to come back from there, just because of the level Tsitsipas was producing. But I mean, we saw Djokovic go off court, and a bit like his match against Musetti earlier in the tournament when he was 2 sets left down, he came out a bit of a different player. He said that again. He said he just felt different. He felt better when he came out. And you knew it was always going to be difficult for Tsitsipas to finish the job off, even as well as he was playing. If Djokovic raised his level, because playing in his first Grand Slam final and against possibly the toughest player mentally, it was so difficult. And it just from that point on, Djokovic he just virtually made no errors compared to what you saw from him in the second set and the end of the first set. He was just giving Tsitsipas nothing, and to sort of force him to continue to play aggressively to win the match with the trophy on the line. It's just asks such difficult questions of a player playing in his first Grand Slam final at just 22. And yeah, it was a fantastic turnaround from Djokovic. How he just seemed to hold his nerve even in the final set, where he could have gone up a double break. Tsitsipas held on and forced him to serve the match out. He got over the line, and with what he was playing for, with history for the 19th Grand Slam, and to win the French Open for the second time, become the first player in the Open era to complete the double career slam, winning every slam at least twice. It was an unbelievable show of resilience again from Djokovic.
Yeah, and I think you've mentioned a couple of things that I'd like to pick up on there. Firstly, with Djokovic going off court, coming back a different player, I feel like you often see a lot of discussion taking place on social media when that kind of thing happens. You'll see a lot of people who aren't fans of the player that's benefited from that situation. Well, you don't know if they've benefited from that situation. We've just taken a break and come back, saying it's bad tactic, throwing all sorts of accusations about what they could have been doing. But I think it's heavily associated with Djokovic. People mention it a lot, but I've seen Nadal take time off court when he's start to lose momentum in matches. It's a commonly employed tactic, and you don't know if there is a genuine reason for them to leave court, or whether they've just gone off to regather themselves, maybe splash some water in the face and go out and turn this around. So you don't know what it's about, and I did just want to touch upon that, because I do see it all the time whenever that happens. Just people can't wait to throw stones at the players they don't like, and I don't think there's anything really in that. I think Tsitsipas mentioned it in his post-match interview as well. And to be fair to Steph, I don't want to come at him here, but I just don't think it's really relevant to the match, really, to the point that it needs to be brought up in a post-match interview. But as for Steph, like, I've got it is, you know, he's such a likable player in general. Like he comes across as a really nice guy off the court, and most of his post-match interview was filled with absolute respect. There's just that little thing, and I thought he played brilliant. It was good to see him in the final. I think I've only come away from this competition with more confidence that he will go on and win slams because of how well he's performed all the way through the tournament and how well he performed in the final. But in terms of the match, a typical kind of 5-set turnaround. One player goes 2 sets up, the other player turns the momentum. So with the momentum shifts in the match, was it Djokovic going up another level in those last 3 sets? Was it maybe Steph dropping off a bit? What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting in terms of the level of both players, how it changed throughout the match. I mean, kind of like I touched on, I thought the first set they both played pretty well, and then I thought it kind of changed from there on. Tsitsipas played even better in the second set. Djokovic's level dropped, and then I thought, yeah, from the third set onwards until the end of the match, I thought Djokovic played at a really high level and a much higher level than he had in the second set and even the first set. And I did think Tsitsipas's level dropped a bit, but I don't think he played badly. Tsitsipas, I think it was possibly particularly towards the end, of a physical element there. I think he did tire a bit more than Djokovic, and obviously mentally, he's going to be feeling the nerves and the tension as he's trying to close out a Grand Slam final, and as the match kind of slips away from 2 sets to love up. And I don't feel he really lost it. I felt Djokovic won it. It was more to do with Djokovic's level, and it's just his resilience, refusal to lie down and give it away, even after he's. Again, it's the first time he's actually come from 2 sets to love down in a Grand Slam final, and I think he's become the first player in the Open era to win 2 matches on the way to winning a Grand Slam from 2 sets to love down. Obviously, he did it against Musetti as well. So, yeah, I think it was just another case study of Djokovic's brilliance, really. And I think there's only positive things that Tsitsipas can take away, and I know he won't be feeling like that right now, and he wasn't after the match, and I wouldn't be either. But he's had a fantastic tournament to make his first slam final. I mean, he'd been in 3 semi-finals previously and not managed to get over the line. So he's overcome a big hurdle then in the semis against Alexander Zverev, where he had a 2 sets to love lead. Looked like he was possibly going to lose that. Obviously, going into a 5th set, he was love 40 down at the start of that. So I think it was just such a massive achievement just for him to get to the final and to actually play as well as he did and come so close by winning 2 sets. I think he'll learn a lot from the experience, and I'm sure he'll win this tournament possibly multiple times in the future, as well as other Grand Slams.
Yeah, just more on Djokovic's brilliance, as you put it there. He now moves on to 19 Grand Slams. Every time you mention a Grand Slam race, it feels like you're going to get into a GOAT debate, but a GOAT debate is taking place online every second of every day. So we're not getting into that, but what we will say, he's moved on to 19. You know, total Grand Slams is just one of the metrics, but he's now 1 behind Federer and Nadal. 2 more Grand Slams left this year, and he's probably the favourite for both of those. So yeah, how do you see the Grand Slam race stacking up come the end of 2021?
Yeah, I think this is an extremely significant victory, because I think, like I said, I think people would given Djokovic a chance here, but I think most people thought Nadal was a fairly strong favourite, and you'd think for Djokovic's where he's going to pick up the slams, it would be at the other 3. You thought, well, Rafa's probably going to win this one and get to 21. Djokovic still being on 18, you would have given him still a good chance to catch that. But now to actually beat Nadal here and win the French Open for the second time, with Wimbledon, the US Open still to come, I think Djokovic is got to be the strong favourite now to overtake Nadal and Federer. Not saying that Nadal and Federer, particularly Nadal, not saying that they can't win more. I'll be surprised if Nadal doesn't win at least 1 more slam. But yeah, for Djokovic, I think he can win multiple more, and I think he's got to be a strong favourite, especially at Wimbledon and probably the US Open as well. So I mean, he is on for the calendar Grand Slam, and possibly obviously an Olympic year with the gold medal there as well. Will be a huge goal for him, because he hasn't won it. It's probably the only big title he hasn't won. the Olympic gold. So yeah, it's a significant win for Djokovic, and in the context of the debate over who's the greatest, I mean, it's possibly one of the biggest tournaments of his career.
Yeah, and the calendar year Grand Slam, I think that's very much on right now. But one of the biggest hurdles to a calendar year Grand Slam is for Roland Garros Wimbledon double. It's not achieved very often because of the quick turnaround, and also just the vast difference between the surfaces. You know, you've got to adapt your game very quickly in just a few weeks. And that turnaround is even quicker this year. But if anyone's going to go from a clay court and then just perform out of this world on a grass court just a couple of weeks later, it is Novak Djokovic, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And like you say, it's difficult to do. Obviously, Djokovic hasn't done it before, and 2016 was the only other time he won the French. He didn't win Wimbledon, although there were other factors there, possibly with the start of the elbow injury and there's possibly a slight loss of motivation, as he's talked about, after finally winning the French Open and completing the career Grand Slam, which he did. Obviously won that well after he won the other 3 slams. But I think this time it does feel a bit different. Obviously, there's a short turnaround, shorter than usual, only 2 weeks before Wimbledon starts now rather than 3. So it is going to be tough. But I think, given what we've seen from him on grass and at Wimbledon and in previous years, he has been the best grass court player probably in this decade. I mean, he's won 5 titles in the last decade, rather, and obviously we didn't have Wimbledon last year. I think there's less strong contenders on grass than there are on clay and on hard courts. I think it's fair to say, with obviously on clay you've got Nadal, which is clearly his best service he can. Wimbledon, we've got Federer, who's a little bit of an unknown going in, but certainly could be a threat if he's fully fit and he finds some more form in Halle. But I think the young guys probably are less comfortable than grass than they are on hard courts and clay at this stage, and just because they haven't played on it as much. So yeah, I see Djokovic as a strong favourite there. Obviously, I think it's as much of a mental hurdle you'll have to overcome. But I think if we do see him fit and playing his best tennis, I'd expect him to win Wimbledon, and then it'll be very interesting going into the Olympics and the US Open, being on for the calendar slam and the Golden Slam.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll continue on Djokovic just for a little bit longer. You know, I mean, he's the champion after all, but I think we really should touch on that semi-final with Nadal. Was you watching?
Yeah, I watched, and it was an unbelievable match. One of the best matches I've watched, definitely. I think it really was special for a 4-set match. I mean, when people talk about the greatest matches of all time, understandably, you think of 5-setters, but I mean, it was a 4-setter. It was almost 4.5 hours. It felt as good as a 5-set. I mean, it was just the level throughout. I thought pretty much from both. They both played extremely well. I mean, I think it's fair to say, as the match went on, Nadal wasn't at his very best, but I think it's probably the first time Nadal's been beaten at the French Open when it's been a good version of Nadal, a fit version. I know he did have a bit of a problem, possibly with a foot issue, I think, as the match went on, but I think that was possibly due to just the physical nature of the match, the conditions, and how Djokovic really did push him to the limit. I mean, the 2 previous times Nadal had lost, I think there'd been an injury had been a factor against Söderling, and in 2015 we know he wasn't confident. So I think this was probably the best performance ever against Nadal at the French Open, and I think Djokovic said afterwards it was one of the 3 best performances he thought of his career. So I mean, it really was a special match. I think it's just such a huge win for Djokovic to actually, I didn't think he could do that at this stage, to actually beat Nadal at the French Open. I thought he had a chance to win another French Open at this stage, but I thought he would, given what we'd seen from Nadal last year, beat him in the final in straight sets convincingly. I mean, it was like, I think it's been described as he's climbed Everest here, and that's what it is. I mean, to actually beat a good version of Nadal at Roland Garros, it's the first time it's happened. So I mean, it was a historic win, and just the quality of the match in that 3rd set, which I think lasted 97 minutes. I think it's been described by many as possibly the greatest set of all time, and I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. Just the physicality, the level of tennis, the momentum swings, the tension. It was, and ended up in a tiebreak that both had set points. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I think that 3rd set, I mean, you know, it's a contender for greatest match of all time for definite, but I think the fact it got ended in 4 sets may hurt its reputation in that regard. But that 3rd set for me definitely goes down as the greatest set of tennis I've ever watched. Just such incredible like energy sapping rallies where it wasn't like we're just rallying with each other because they were scared to lose a point. They were both going for winners. They were both trying to hit winners, and it was like both players had that voice in their head. You've got to get this point, win this point, and just wouldn't give up on any point. And it's kind of sad in a way. I think the fact that set was so good meant that it was only ever going to be ended in 4 sets because to have put that much effort into a set and to lose it was always going to be a big mental blow. And then if you are carrying some kind of issue, some kind of injury, some kind of tiredness, you're going to feel that tiredness a lot harder if it's got disappointment alongside it. So I do think that set being so brilliant was a big factor in it ending in 4 sets, but just one of the most incredible sets of tennis I've ever seen. I think if I had to sum it up, I'd say it was like a compilation. When you see compilations of some of the best points in tennis ever, it was like all that compilation, but point after point after point, one after another. It was incredible at times. But moving on from Djokovic now, from Nadal, from Tsitsipas, the main talking points. Quite an interesting tournament for young players. So you've got Davidovich Fokina into the quarterfinal. You had Musetti reaching the 4th round and taking 2 sets off Djokovic, actually going 2 sets up against Djokovic. You had Carlos Alcaraz into the 3rd round. Good to see some of the young stars at Roland Garros, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, and as you say, all those names you mentioned all had a really good run and some impressive wins. I mean, even Alcaraz just at 18 to win 2 main draw Grand Slam matches, he was really impressive. Lost in the end to Struff, who had a great tournament. He knocked out Rublev in the 1st round, which was probably one of the bigger upsets on the men's side. But yeah, Musetti was extremely impressive. I mean, took out Goffin in straight sets in the 1st round. I mean, he was playing in his first Grand Slam main draw event, Musetti, and to go to the 4th round and play the way he did, and then to go up 2 sets to love on Djokovic. I mean, and they were 2 extremely high quality sets, particularly from Musetti's point of view. That took over 2 hours, winning them both on tie breaks against Djokovic. He showed such impressive variety and just the talent he has. But also, he showed some good mental toughness there, and I think it took a lot out of him, though, as you saw. And then, I mean, Djokovic played unbelievably from that point on to lose only 1 more game, but I think massively positive tournament from Musetti. And Davidovich Fokina, to come through that section, I don't think many people really saw that coming. I think people either thought it would be Casper Ruud. I mean, and he pulled off a fantastic upset against Ruud in the 3rd round. That was probably one of the matches of the tournament as well. It was definitely in the early rounds. It was 7-5 in the 5th set. It was such a grueling match, and to be Ruud, who was so highly favoured, who'd had such a fantastic clay court season, I think he's really outlined himself as a real contender, particularly on clay, out of the young guys. And also with Team going out in that section was a bit of a surprise in the early round to lose at the 1st hurdle to Pablo Andujar. I mean, that was he was 2 sets to love up there. But Davidovich Fokina, I think he backed up the win, which I forgot to mention, against Ruud by being Federico Del Bonis in 4 sets, who's had a really good clay court season, and he's a tough competitor. So I think he's definitely someone to watch out for going forward, particularly on clay.
Yeah, and looking out for players on clay, I think we were both looking out for Medvedev to maybe back up our predictions and lose quite early, as he often has at Roland Garros in the past. But he reached the quarterfinal. Neither of us had predicted, I think, for him to get through his quarter of the draws section and make it to the quarterfinal. So how surprised were you by Medvedev's performance, and what do you think took him that far?
Well, yeah, I was pretty surprised. I mean, I didn't think I thought he had an outside chance, but I think we both went for Christian Garin to get at the quarterfinal out then. I mean, that was who got the 4th round, but I mean, Medvedev kind of crushed him in the 4th round. I mean, Garin still had a pretty good tournament, but yeah, I was a bit surprised by Medvedev, just because what we'd seen from him in the clay court season so far, and seemingly almost the lack of effort at times, even in Rome where he lost to Karatsev, he just didn't seem to want to be there. But I think he was the key was probably a change in approach. I think he had talked going into this tournament. He said, "I feel confident. I've actually enjoyed playing on these courts and practicing well." He said he almost feels like it's playing on hard courts. So he clearly found something when he got here, but for me, it was hard to read too much into that, because you don't know whether it's sort of whether to actually take it seriously. You hear from him say these things in press at times or on court. So yeah, I couldn't really trust without seeing it that that's what was going to happen. But when you look at his game, it's not ideal for Clay, but he's still such a fantastic player that I thought there's no reason why he shouldn't be doing a lot better than he has on clay. And I think we saw in this tournament, he was extremely impressive. I mean, only dropping one set through the first 4 rounds, and he didn't have easy matches either against Bublik, Tommy Paul, Opelka, and Garin. And yeah, he won pretty convincingly against them all, and even pushed Tsitsipas quite well in the quarterfinals. I mean, he lost in straight sets in the end, but had a set point in the 2 set points in the second set and a tight third set, which he ended with a pretty crazy underarm serve and volley on match point. But he played really well there, Medvedev, and I think it's a massive positive for him on clay moving forward that he can actually be a contender at Roland Garros.
Yeah. And I think this is actually turning into a bit of a Wimbledon preview of this, because I think we should now move on to Federer, who hadn't showed great signs really in Geneva. I think it was the ATP 250 there. He went out in his first match. But here at Roland Garros, he turned up, he made it to the 4th round, and then he withdrew seemingly to save himself for the grass court, where he's, that's his main chance at getting Grand Slam number 21. Positive signs from Federer on the clay at Roland Garros. But making that decision to save himself for the grass, what did you make of his run, and what did you make of the decision?
Yeah, first of all, I thought he was pretty impressive in the matches that he did play. Although against Istomin in the first round, I mean, okay, it was maybe a good first round draw, but he played really well. And then Cilic in the second round wasn't an easy one, as we saw Cilic just gone on to win a title on grass. Okay, he hasn't been at his best recently, Cilic, but I thought actually he played a pretty good match there. Federer did really well to come through that in 4, and then you obviously had the grueling match against Dominic Kepfer in the 3rd round to come through in 4 sets, 3 tiebreaks in there, finished well into the night with no crowd. I mean, to come through that, he showed a lot there, definitely. I mean, he could have easily lost that match, and I think it was a good sign that he did look tired, but he held up physically to actually come through that. Obviously, it's been a long time since he's played best of 5 set matches, so it's been a controversial decision from the pull out ahead of playing Berrettini in the 4th round. But I think for the tournament it was a shame, but for him, I can understand the decision. I understand why he's done it, and I do kind of understand people who are saying that you shouldn't use a Grand Slam as a warm up for another Grand Slam, and maybe he could have played another grass court tournament. I mean, whether he could have played Stuttgart instead, and then which is going on during the second week, and then Halle. But look, I think he wanted to play the best of 5 sets physically to test himself. Whereas he obviously felt 3 matches, including one really, really tough one, was enough. And I can understand him not wanting to compromise his body with Wimbledon just around the corner. So, yeah, a bit of a shame that we didn't get to see that match against Berrettini, but understandable. I think a positive tournament for Federer ahead of Wimbledon.
Yeah, I think we all want to see Federer back. I think even the most sort of stern Nadal and Djokovic fans will want to see Federer back, because he is an important competitor to have, and it would be nice to see him have another great run or 2 before he calls time on his career, which we can imagine is pretty soon. Obviously we don't know, but we can imagine it's probably going to be pretty soon. I do really take the point that maybe he shouldn't be using a Grand Slam as a warm up. As just a tool to get match fitness, and it does hurt the tournament when he then withdraws. We don't get that match against Berrettini. Berrettini probably quite happy to get a bye through the 4th round actually to recover for that Djokovic game. It didn't work out in the end for him, but it does. It hurts the tournament for me. It's a bit of a shame, but I'm still a huge Federer fan. It hasn't. His reputation isn't hurt with me, at least. But we'll move on to the women's tournament now. Like we said, Barbora Krejčíková getting the title there. She's mainly focused on doubles tennis in the past. In fact, she won the doubles, the women's doubles as well, beating Swiatek and Matek Sanzu, great doubles team there in the final. So her refocus to singles tennis has been quite recent. She was outside the top 100, I believe, 9 months ago. Quite a fairy tale story. Did you ever see this coming?
No, I didn't really. And I mean, look, we've talked about on here many times. There are surprises on the WTA side, even in Grand Slams. Players you don't really expect either making deep runs or possibly even going on to win the title. I mean, we've seen it at this slam with Jelena Ostapenko a few years ago. He was unseeded and a real surprise winner. And even Swiatek last year was known as a really promising player, but obviously won the title when she was unseeded. I don't think anyone really saw that coming, but this was probably even more of a surprise. I think. I mean, we had seen some good results from Krejčíková this year. I think winning the title in Strasbourg ahead of the event, so she did come in with wins under her belt and had made the final in Dubai earlier in the season. But like you say, I think she was ranked outside the top 100 sort of in the autumn of last year even. So I mean, it has been a really rapid rise for her, and I didn't see it as a contender for this title. I mean, it was a fantastic week for her. And I mean, some of the wins she had, I mean, particularly I think in the semis against Maria Sakkari, who I'm sure we'll talk about as well, who knocked out Iga Swiatek. She saved a match point there. Krejčíková winning 9-7 in the third set. For me, that was possibly the match of the tournament on the women's side. Yeah, there was a lot of tension. There's probably a lot of errors in the match, but I thought it was still an enjoyable match and a really the type of match you want to see at the end of a Grand Slam with two players really giving everything. You can see what it means to them trying to get to a Grand Slam final, and Krejčíková held a nerve better than everyone else she faced along the way. I mean, she knocked out Alina Svitolina earlier on, Coco Gauff, who had a fantastic tournament, who's been in brilliant form, and then Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova in the final, who's a much more experienced player, probably another surprise finalist, but someone who's been in Grand Slam quarterfinals, I think 6 times before she finally won this one. So yeah, it was a real surprise for Krejčíková, but possibly the doubles experience. She had 1-2 doubles Grand Slams, including the French Open, I think in 2018. So it's that experience possibly made the difference.
Yeah, I mean, looking at maybe more of the tournament, I think from the quarterfinals forward, you're looking at the lineup that's there, and it's just not what we predicted at all. I think Iga Swiatek, the only player in the quarterfinals that we really expected to be there. Ash Barty unfortunately had to withdraw early on with an injury, which was a shame because she looked encouraging in that first match until the injury started setting in, but she still managed to get through it. So a really interesting tournament. In fact, I've seen a statistic, I think, that the last 6 women's tournaments at the French Open in a row have had first-time winners, and I think that's really interesting because we always talk about how the WTA certainly throws up some surprises, but it seems especially for WTA on clay is where you see the biggest surprises. So what did you make of the tournament? It is really interesting, isn't it, to see this kind of lineup from a quarterfinal. It's completely different to what we've got in the men's game, when it was probably around what we were expecting with just a few surprises in there.
Yeah, it is really interesting, and it's actually, I think it's quite good sometimes to have like a contrast between the two. Because I mean, on the men's side, you can kind of see the storylines coming. I think everyone thought it would be Djokovic and Nadal in the semis, and probably got had a good idea of most of the quarterfinalists as well. But like you say, I think from these 8 quarterfinalists, I think we had Swiatek and maybe Sakkari, who ended up upsetting Swiatek. I think I picked Sakkari. I think you did as well, and I mean that was probably the upset of the tournament. As much as we talked about a lot of the big seeds going out earlier on, some through injury, some through other factors. But yeah, I thought Sakkari had a chance to have a good run here, but I just thought Swiatek would be too strong, particularly with Barty and the other main contenders falling one by one pretty much along the way. But Sakkari was outstanding in that match to win in straight sets. I thought she had a fantastic tournament, probably even better than I expected. I mean, she's someone I thought was an extremely promising player, and she went close here. Probably she was the one who was actually expected when it got to the semis to go on and win it. And maybe there's a bit of pressure there, but I think that just showed how impressive Krejčíková was, because that was probably a bit of an upset still. I mean, you could say when it got to the last 4, it was pretty much anyone's at that point once Swiatek went out, because like I said, I think most people thought, I mean, she hadn't lost a set up until that match, going back to through last year's French Open as well. I mean, she'd been on an unbelievable run, and obviously winning Rome heading into this tournament, she'd been fantastic. So that was a big upset. And I think Tamara Zidansek reaching the last four as well was a surprise, possibly even more of a surprise than Krejčíková, because I think she was ranked 85 in the world coming into the tournament. And she had a fantastic run, and not coming far away from the final. And Aryna Sabalenka possibly losing in the third round of Pavlyuchenkova was one of the big upsets. I think we both thought Sabalenka would reach the final. She still seems to have a bit of a mental block at the slams. I mean, I think it's all credit to Pavlyuchenkova for how well she played in that match, but it was a poor performance from Sabalenka, and the bottom half of the draw particularly really did open up. So I think that was a bit of a missed opportunity possibly for Sabalenka, but I mean, she's going to get many more chances to win a slam. So it was a really interesting one. I think you saw when one seed went out, you kind of thought, oh, well, it's now really opened up for this player. You probably thought it's really opened up for Sabalenka. Sabalenka went out, well, it's opened up even more for Serena. Then Serena went out to Alina Rybakina, who had a fantastic run as well. And yeah, it was just, it was really difficult to predict what was going to happen.
Yeah, I think on Maria Sakkari, I think certainly from the back end of 2020, it may even go back further. She showed promising signs that a run like this would come along. So I'll admit I was surprised to see her definitely to beat Swiatek and get into the French Open semi-final. But I would probably have said that, you know, she's probably shown that she'll make a deep run at a Grand Slam at some point very soon. With the signs she showed in the last year or so. So it's not that hugely surprising. Certainly the win over Swiatek is though. But Coco Gauff as well. You know, ever since that breakthrough at Wimbledon, you know, it's hard to break through like 15 years old and reach the fourth round of Wimbledon the way she did, because you've immediately set huge expectations on yourself. But I think she's dealt with it fantastically. She's just continued to develop her game. She's actually gone about her business quite quietly. I'd say she hasn't really hit the heights that she did at Wimbledon and get, you know, be the big news story like she was back then for a while. But she has still continued to pick up positive results, develop a game. And it's resulted in a quarter-final here at the French Open. So, you know, Coco Gauff, how long is it until we'll see her challenging further, or do you not want to even get into that discussion? Do you want to just let her continue go about it quietly?
Well, yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe we should. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think that's a good thing for her. Probably that she wasn't the big story like she was, like you say, when she really broke through Wimbledon. And I think she had another good run at the U.S. Open shortly after that. And yeah, she wasn't really. She sort of did go under the radar a little bit, possibly because there was just so much else going on. Like I said, with big seeds falling or other stories which you weren't expecting, like Krejčíková, Zidansek, and many more. So I think it was a really positive tournament for her to get to a quarterfinal, a best run in the slam, and she was really impressive through the early rounds. I mean, she didn't drop a set up until her eventual loss to Krejčíková, where she did have a lot of set points in that first set. So I mean, it could have been different there, but I think she's still so young, and I think winning the title as well in Palma coming in, she's shown particularly on clay she's going to be a real factor, in that she could well win this tournament in the future. And I think, yeah, to go on how long could it be? I think I wouldn't be too surprised. Maybe in a couple of years if we could see her really challenging for these titles.
Yeah, and just on the rest of the players that we have touched on that have gone quite far. So Pavlyuchenkova into the final, Tamara Zidansek into the semi-final. On these players, because, you know, I'm going to say it yet again, the WTA full of surprises, but that often means that maybe you get a bit of a flash in the pan, you know, someone who goes far in one tournament, you think, okay, that's a big breakthrough, but then you don't really see much of them again. So how confident are you that these players, you know, we will see them in going deep into slams in the future and you know, continue to have a fantastic career from here?
Yeah, well, Pavlyuchenkova, I think, has been a really good, consistent player for a long time. So I mean, with this being a big breakthrough for her at a Grand Slam, I think she's definitely capable of not necessarily making finals on a regular basis, but making deep runs at Grand Slams more consistently. I mean, I think, like I said, she made 6 Grand Slam quarterfinals before this, and I think when that happened, yeah, maybe she'd probably been a bit unfortunate not to go further. Because I mean, to make that stage of a slam that many times, you've got to be a very good player. And I've always thought she's a really talented player. I think we saw that here, and she did get over that hurdle against Rybakina in the quarters, which I think is a massive win for us. Rybakina had a fantastic tournament, so I think Pavlyuchenkova, I think she's had so many top 10 wins. I think she's been about 36 top 10 players, but never actually been in the top 10 herself. I think she's got a career high ranking of 12. So and this will lift her right back up towards that. So I think she's someone who could possibly break into the top 10 with the confidence she'll take from this, and still at only 29. I think she's someone we could see more of now, possibly having the best period of her career. So I think, like I said, she's definitely got the talent. And Krejčíková being a player who, like you said, had focused on doubles a lot previously, with a shift now coming to single. Obviously, she's still having great success in doubles here, winning the title and winning the double, single and women's doubles. Double is a fantastic achievement. I think we've got to, as you say, we've got to recognise that. You don't see that very often. But with her, as soon as her shift's been to singles, really, I think we've seen from the end of last year and start of this year signs that she could be a real contender in singles. So again, I wouldn't be predicting sort of multiple Grand Slams, but I think she'll be a player we'll see at the top of the game more regularly. And Zidansek was probably one of the more surprising for me, just because where she was ranked only not far inside the top 100 going in, but she's still a young player. So I think definitely looks like a very good player on clay. I'm not sure what we'll see from her on other surfaces, but I think being young and already having a result like this, I think we'll see her closer at the top of the game for sure as well.
I think just summing up our discussion on the WTA, we'll touch on a talking point, a more negative talking point that's kind of followed this tournament all the way through, and it is the whole situation with Naomi Osaka. Having said that she didn't want to take part in press conferences throughout the tournament and facing a little bit of backlash from that, she actually put in a positive performance in the first round and came through, but decided the best decision for herself was to withdraw, take some time away to just focus on her mental health and come back hopefully in a much better frame of mind. But I think we'd both say the WTA tour is much weaker without Naomi Osaka, wouldn't we? And it's probably an important decision for her to take some time away for her own well-being, isn't it? Would you say, and just come back hopefully? The same fantastic player, but hopefully in a better frame of mind. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, like you say, it was a shame the way things all unfolded. I mean, whatever people think of her original decision to do press or to not, I mean, I think she was doing it for a genuine reason. And yeah, I mean, I can understand that the tournament maybe weren't happy with it. They weren't one of the biggest stars in press conferences because of the interest it generates. So that, yeah, I think it could have been handled better maybe from both sides. But I think certainly we've heard the reasons Osaka has cited after deciding to pull out with struggles with depression. I think, yeah, we've got to wish her all the best, and that, like we say, we hope for her and for the sport that she's feeling okay to come back as soon as possible, whether that's Wimbledon or possibly the Olympics, which will be I'm sure a huge goal for her. Look forward to seeing her back.
Yeah, I'd really like to see her back at the Olympics in her home country as well. It would be great to see, because I predicted her to win that tournament. I'd love to see a home winner, because it'd be great to see the atmosphere inside those stadiums in Tokyo. So get well soon, Naomi, and we can't wait for you to be back on tour, because you are one of the most interesting players in the sport. But we'll wrap it up there. Our review of the French Open, a good tournament in the end with great talking points, fantastic champions. Big congratulations to Barbora Krejčíková and Novak Djokovic, and I suppose look forward to Wimbledon now. We've got the Queen's championships kicking off pretty much as we speak. Halle as well this week, and then straight back into it at Wimbledon. So I know you're going to enjoy watching the tennis over the next few weeks, alongside the Euros as well. Both me and you and our football fans, it's not going to be a productive few weeks, I can tell you that, for probably us both. But we're going to really enjoy the tennis and the football. So hopefully we'll be back soon for for those podcasts, probably previewing and reviewing Wimbledon. Thanks for listening and goodbye.